Kwemi Uluwatodimu is here in the studio with us. He's a lawyer and public affairs analyst. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, listening to the clergyman speak, and particularly, first of all, let's take the Reverend Francis Waluke's comments that the rule of law should be pretty much saying that the rule of law should have more bite than just back. Of course, we'll come back to the other one by the other clergyman, but what is your take on that?
Well, it is very important that the rule of law is upheld, and because if we don't allow the rule of law to operate and bite, we would find ourselves in a state of anarchy. And the challenge is that if you live in a lawless society, it's an invitation to anarchy. And at this point, we have the institutions, we have, all we need is to ensure that there's enforcement. And I align my position with the pastor that the rule of law must bite, because people will get away with a lot of illegalities. Yeah. And, it is quite frightening and worrisome.
What's interesting is that whether the rule of law will just back without bite, or it will bite, comes down to your profession, comes down to your colleagues who will argue for or against, citing, relevant or irrelevant cases in some cases. So there is always a place for the judiciary to play when we are talking about the rule of law, because sometimes it looks to us like, hey, this is nursery school English, it's just plain paper. This is what the law says, and this is what must take action. But we'll always find that sometimes when there are arguments and counter-arguments, they don't usually go the way we seem it should go. In our eye, it is simple, but in the eye of the law, it usually is not.
Well, yes, I agree with you, and the truth of it is that the judiciary needs to be up and doing. Because
you don't think they're up and doing enough?
Well, yes, like you have mentioned, you will see that many of these instances that you even read, the common man on the streets expects that, oh, this is A has been done, then the appropriate sanctions or whatever should be meted out. But, because we have quite, the delays. We have had instances wherein you are talking about land transactions and you're spending 10 years in court. And, you would even look, there are so many matters that ordinarily, okay, let's look at the example of the senator. She has resumed. She was, she was suspended for 6 months. And she has gone to court to challenge that suspension. 6 months, the office was opened yesterday, and you will see that they are still at the Court of Appeal. What happens if the court makes a pronouncement? Most likely it might now become an academic exercise, because the rest has been destroyed. The events are already overtaken. And those, most times, if you look at it with what happens on a daily basis, you will see that we need to ensure that our judiciary bites. How? Ensuring that there is speedy delivery of justice. If there is no speedy delivery of justice, then the exercise is academic.
That's one court. The judiciary is one court. Another court is the court of public opinion. But please don't speak to that yet. There is also the aspect of training. And one of the questions we've asked on this program a number of times is, do we even have a way of training leaders, the younger generation, for elective positions in our country today? And then you hear Pastor Yemi Davids there saying that they don't just train clergymen to be pastors and all, they also raise people, train people to go into political positions, elective, offices and all of that. Do you think really that the church or any religious organization has what it takes to build people for that level of leadership?
Well, yes, I would want to believe that, because if you look at the Christian and the Islamic religion, it plays a pivotal role in shaping the attitude of young persons, even people, because the expectation of from a religious person is that you must be morally upright, you must be prepared to, adapt and live in the society in a way that will be constructive. Having said that, now the church of today has gone a step forward to also ensure that, to see that the organized trainings and platforms for the young persons to be able to adapt to the society and also lead. And, there are so many programs that they call up and run for people to enter into leadership roles and performative functions. And I think that it's a step in the right direction. Where the government can now come in is to, walk the talk as opposed to just having social studies or civic duties in primary school or secondary school and the university. We must now consciously, because it is a conscious effort that we must adapt. The government must now make a conscious effort to ensure that people right from the formative stage to tertiary, they must ensure that leadership and responsibility is built into our curriculum.
And what's also interesting in what you have just said now is this interesting, well, unfortunate scenario we have on our hands, where we hear that some elected officials at the lowest level of government, which is really the foundation level of government, have died in what I don't know whether to call it strange circumstances, particularly in Lagos. We understand that female, more specifically, there is a death of 4 female elected officers in Lagos. It's already sparking some controversy at various levels, and one is wondering exactly what is going on here. It's just 57 days ago, on the 27th of July, when the newly elected council chairman and vice chairman and councillors were inaugurated across Lagos. Shockingly, within this same period, 4 of them, all women, have passed. So if people have been trained to get into office, and they actually now do get into office, and then this kind of unfortunate incident occurs, first of all, number one, what do you make of it? And number two, how encouraging can it be? Or vice versa?
All right. The truth of it is that, I've read about these instances, and death is inevitable. Now, what we must now ask ourselves is that, yes, they have said that these deaths are strange because they are women. We don't have a statistics of the men that have died. Now, now that this happened in Lagos, there is a coroner system law in Lagos of 2007 that says that every suspicious death must be investigated, and the coroner must sit on it to ascertain the cause of death. And I think that that's the best direction that the government can start from, to actually ascertain the cause of death of these persons. If it could also be as a result of the stress of the parliamentary duty they have been assigned to. It could also be as a result of other mysterious circumstances. But the truth of it is that we must ensure that we keep a platform where everybody is not afraid to put themselves up for elective position. Not that I put myself up for elective position and the next thing is death because of extraneous factors, because of vindictiveness, because of voodoo or whatever. So we must ensure that we have a level playing ground. Because if this nation must improve, if this nation must get better, we must put in our best hands to ensure that they turn around the system. And if we keep killing them, if by mysterious circumstances, everybody is afraid, nobody wants to die. You take office and you die. And I don't think that is a good development.
It's a little worrisome, Mr. Oluwatodimu, because it wasn't just in one local government, it's in various local governments across, the state. One was in somewhere around Ojuwe, one was somewhere around Badagry and all of that. And this is also coming, especially for females, and at a time when we are still advocating for more inclusion of the female gender in our politics. This is definitely not going to be very, very encouraging, because you know how passionate, for instance, women are about their families, about their children, about their spouses, and the sense of responsibility that they always have to carry. So what would be your perspective? What, on the one hand, is that of investigation? What are the likely consequences of this occurrence that you think we need to guard against?
Well, as it stands, if the investigation is conducted and the reasons for these deaths, if it's found out that they died under suspicious circumstances, then such should be nipped in the bud, because they are a delicate species and they must be handled as such. Because you can't, we are still complaining that we don't have enough women in politics, and the little who have some more courage to participate are now being killed? No. Okay. And that's why the government must also be proactive to say, oh, one death is too many. We should 4 of them. What is going on? We have not heard about the corona system kicking into play and all that. So that means that we must ensure that and justice not just to be done; it must be seen to to be done. The government must be proactive. People must go all out to say, oh, what has happened? There must not be a reoccurrence. If it is health challenges, if it's because the system is too strenuous, then there must be there must be parastatals, there must be actions to forestall such circumstances reoccurring.
All right. Well, there is this also the issue of the Nigeria's foreign policy that Marquez started to talk about. I'm sure she would like to take you up on that as well. Okay, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Ayo. Indeed, Nigeria is currently at the UN General Assembly taking place in New York. The UN has been facing recent threats, you know, and when you look at the opening plenary session of the General Assembly yesterday and some of the speeches that were given by very prominent leaders of the free world, so to speak, prominent leaders of the free world, so to speak. You know, some people will say it leaves a lot to be desired in terms of what should be happening to a body like that, which is a body essentially built on consensus. You know, countries coming together, surrendering a bit of their sovereignty to say, we want to make this happen, we want to make the world a more peaceful and better place. But from what we have seen in recent times, especially with the war between Ukraine and Russia, and also between Israel, well, I don't know if it's a war, if it can be categorized as a war between Israel and Gaza, because some people will say, if the other party stops fighting back or is unable to fight back, can it still be categorized as a war? But these are some of the current battles on the front lines now for a lot of people to consider. We're bombarded by these visuals on a daily basis, and yet it does appear that the United Nations is powerless in some of these situations. What is some of your thinking as a Nigerian looking on the world stage and somebody who is also looking at the fact that we have sent a sizable delegation to the UN General Assembly?
My perspective is that the UN needs to do more. And we can't say because the UN is not doing enough, we should throw the baby away with the bathwater. The truth of it is that there needs to be a convergence of nations to ensure that there's peace in the world. Peace in the world is a responsibility of all parties. It is an undertaking that world leaders must ensure that they conform to. Because if we leave it in the hand of various persons and not put a form of check on them, then the war is an invitation to anarchy, and the end result would not be good enough. And now, having said that, what we must all ensure, like the delegation that has done, is to also impress it on the UN that you are not just there as a ceremonial body. You must walk the talk, apply sanctions. Because if you were in other circumstances, the sanctions would have been applied. And this is what we are calling for, that the UN must back and bite and ensure that there is compliance. Because, you can't bully other nations into submission. There must be sanctions. And that's what I feel that is a step in the right direction.
People say it cannot give sanctions outside of the, outside of what the UN Security Council will determine, because the UN Security Council will have the ultimate say, yes, they will be voting at the General Assembly, but then the UN Security Council, which is, in which 5 members hold the veto power, if 1 or 2 of the powers are not in support of the sanctions, then those sanctions cannot even hold in the first instance. So, do you think that do you think its veto power system is still a way to the United Nations, or do you think there ought to be new thinking around how world politics should be organized?
I didn't get that question.
Well, what's your thinking about how politics should be organized?
Well, politics is always a game of numbers, and what happens in circumstances at times, it might not be fair because of the numbers. But, there's this natural law that says that men ought to be reasonable. And one would expect that out of 5, a substantial number should be reasonable. And now, having said that, there are also factors that parties outside that body of the 5 can also, speak on behalf of other nations and say, come, put some form of pressure on them to say, let's do the right thing. Let's do the proper thing. And once there is pressure on them, to do the proper thing, it will be difficult for them to step away from the general disposition of other members of the UN, not particularly the Security Council, but the other parties can now put some form of pressure on them because they are also stakeholders to have a talk with them to say, no, this position, the direction you are heading is not good enough. We think that you should do this. And I think that that's the best way forward. That, of course, we would expect that, the natural law that men ought to be reasonable would be applied. Of course, there are, politics, there are factors that would influence such decisions. But the larger decision that we should all look at as, as a world, our worldview should be peace in the world. And that is what the UN should be fighting for.
What are your expectations? Because today, Nigeria should be making its own position known at the UN General Assembly, ongoing with the Vice President representing the President at the UN. What are your expectations from his speech?
Well, for Nigeria, our speech would, like last year, we wanted to become a permanent member, and that, of course, was not acceded to. This year, the same proposition will be made, and we're optimistic that Nigeria will be accepted. But my view is that most likely the same stance from last year will still come into play. And, Nigeria also, I feel that we should be more specific as to our demands. When you're asking for more funding, you should be very clear as to what the funding you are requesting for. What do you intend to do with it? Are you intending to build tech hubs? And give timelines. Don't just throw it into the wind. Give us $10 billion. What do you intend to do with the money? Let's say, give us $10 billion in the next 2 or 3 years. We would build tech hubs, we'll build children hospitals. Let's track our growth. And also, Nigeria should be in a position to let them know, this is what we have assessed so far from the UN, this is what we have assessed from IMF, or wherever we have assessed them, this is what we have done with the funding. This is the steps we have taken in terms of our security, this is where we were last year, this is where we are going, and there should be analysis, in-depth analysis, not just come to read speeches that are, that are just cooked up and there are no verifiable facts. People want to listen to you when there's track record of growth, when there's track record of the steps that you have taken and how you have been able to turn around and manage what has been given you in times past.
Some people are disappointed that the president is not the one representing Nigeria himself. Are you disappointed as well?
Well, this is not the first time.
Okay.
Yes, so this is not the first time, and it is not out of place for him to have the vice president attend that forum. And also, lately people have been complaining that the president has been traveling so much. So it might be a way of the president listening to the voices of the masses. I hope that is it.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Opeyemi Oluwatodimu is a lawyer and public affairs analyst. We appreciate your time and your thoughts today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay.